Good morning, friends, and welcome to the main object big book study of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am an alcoholic. My name is David. So hello. So wonderful to see you all here so early and everybody just ready to go. I have asked our friend Joan. I just need to unlock the mysteries of Zoom here, screen sharing. And Joan, when you get a chance, if you could read the preamble, please.
Thank you for asking me to be of service, David. My name is Joan and I am an alcoholic. AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan. And um, so, to set the tone for the meeting, I'll ask you if you so choose to join me in connecting with God and saying the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Since there are one or two new folks here, I will just briefly go over our format, actually, as I do it every week. We are a line by line big book study, and which means that we go through the text pretty slowly. We don't, at least the way that I was brought up in AA, when you went to a big book meeting, you read a whole chapter at a time. And the longer I stayed sober, the more that felt. I'm not, I think those meetings are very valuable and I still go to them. It's just that sometimes it feels like drinking from a fire hose. It's there is so much going on there, and so what I find is that when I started attending my first line by line big book study, and they went slowly and they took it all, not almost, they took it word for word. um, it unlocked the power in the book. It unlocked my ability to have a different relationship with our primary text and a different relationship with the program. And so I want to share a little bit of that with you today. And also, I learned a little trick along the way that helped me, and I'll share that with you. And that is to categorize the text as we go along to further understand what's going on. And and so I'll share a bit of that as well. And five categories of text. We have questions, directions and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. What we do, or what I do, is the colors you see there are highlighter colors that I use, and I highlight the text so it further turns the big book for me into a powerful reference tool that I use to then share the message with other people. And so our format today is we're going to cover about a little more than a page, perhaps, and then what we will do from there is, and we're starting, just FYI, if anybody got here a little later, we're starting on page 60 with the last paragraph there that starts with the first requirement. I'll share on that till about the top of the hour for us, which is on the East Coast here, 7 o'clock, and then we'll open it up for your thoughts and discussions and impressions. And the meeting is recorded. The audio from the meeting, I should say, is recorded. We remain in alignment with our traditions. There's no video, but we record the audio, which is, and we just record my part, so I don't want to impose a recording on anyone who might want to share their comments. So, but that is posted on our YouTube webpage, and so we have an archive for people who want to get caught up or might miss a meeting. And just FYI about that. And with that, I think we're going to get underway. So, just to summarize where we've been, we 2 weeks ago we talked about how it works, and we talked basically we got about halfway through how it works on page, and I mean the statement how it works that we read in most meetings, and then last week we covered the second part of how it works, and we really saw that it's positioning us, because Bill spends a lot of time going in depth into the program, and he takes a step back for a second to give us a summary of where we're going overall. He gives us, if you will, a 30,000-foot view of the program of recovery. And I think it's interesting as well because it's the first time where we see all 12 steps listed in a numbered fashion. And I shared 2 weeks ago, I shared a little bit of the story of that, which is if you read historical accounts, it really, Bill, the last thing Bill wanted to do was write that evening. And he was so full of anxiety over writing the book, that he had one of his, what he called imaginary ulcers. And he went upstairs with a legal pad, prayed, and in 30 minutes had written out steps 1 through 12, pretty much in a very inspired fashion. And what that really says to me is that I don't know if Bill was writing so much as receiving a divine transmission. And that's not for everybody's belief, but that's the way I see it. And because I do believe our program is divinely inspired. And once he lists those 12 steps, he really then positions where that puts us. Once we have a summary of the program, it really positions us at step 3, what he's talking about, once we understand what is underway for us. And now we're going to see that actually he even takes a further step back just to summarize and go a little bit further in depth. And if this might seem like it's out of sequence, it's just not logical, and I agree, it is out of sequence, but I think there is a logic to it. And one of the things I'd like to share with you, if some of you have seen this before, if you've been on this meeting, is this little tool that this little doodle that I put out there called the commitment spiral. And it's the 4 key ideas that Bill keeps coming back to again and again and again. And these are themes. And what he is really doing, and the reason that it's a spiral and not a circle, is that it keeps going around and around and around. And I can just speak from my own experience, being sober a number of years, is that it never ever stops. You keep going through this cycle, but just in spiral fashion, you just go deeper and deeper and deeper. And we're seeing Bill do that right now because he was going in depth into steps 1, 2, and 3. He backs out gives us all 12. And now he starts back in again, but in a deeper fashion. And we will see that as we go, especially with step 1, where he illustrates it in a way that really drives it home and points to our own behavior and how that's influenced by our disease. So he says, and I'm going to back up just a little bit, being convinced we were at step 3. This is after reading how it works, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. And just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? Okay, what do we do with step 3? Okay, so now beginning, he's saying the first requirement, the first thing we need to do in order to undertake this journey is that we be convinced, and this sentence, this first 2 lines I have as explanation or direction. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. I looked up the definition of convinced. Now, I would think most of us would know what convinced means, but I got all my little props and accessories here, and so here's my 1939 dictionary trying to kind of get into Bill's head a little bit. And the definition of the word convinced, and we'll put this, if it doesn't make it to the chat today, it'll make it to the show notes the meeting notes in the YouTube, on the YouTube page. The first requirement is that we be convinced. And convinced, the definition is to satisfy by evidence or argument. And I think that's important because what it says is that we are exposed or participate in a process of receiving evidence or an argument. And rather than divine, like we're divinely inspired, it's a logical, rational process. And what that also means, and I've mentioned this before, is that I don't know if Bill intended it, but today when we read the book, these days I should say, we can see that the text can often be taken intended for 2 distinct audiences. One is the newcomer, the person who's coming to AA for the first time, or really coming to understand what it's about for the first time. But the second audience is direction for those who are the recovered alcoholics who are sharing the message. And this is a perfect example because this sentence speaks to both. Because it says, hey, Mr. or Ms. Newcomer, you need to be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Okay. That's to the newcomer. But how about, what does it say to the recovered alcoholic? Well, if convincing means to satisfy by evidence or argument, when I tell my story, or when I raise my hand and I'm given my 3 minutes, am I using that time to present evidence or an argument that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success? Am I framing my experience, strength, and hope in a way that's aligned with that? I hope that makes sense, because the only way, it's not like there's some newcomer video program that's going to present all of that in a very tight fashion. It's got to come from us. And so are we doing that? And then the rest of this page, just moving on, it's evidence, or it's supporting the sentence that we start with, that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. So the rest of this page in this paragraph is warning. And that is, on that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, the rest of the players in his own way. If, and I'm going to just jump over to the next page for a moment, if his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Now, one of the things I did not pick up on until it was late, and I'll tell you why this is so ironic in a minute, that I did not pick up on when I first read this, it had to be pointed out to me, is that they're not talking about the director who wants to run the show, because that's the job of the director. The director designs the stage or has a part in directing and designing the stage. He tells the actors where to move and how to say their lines. But notice he's not talking about the director. He's talking about the actor. He's talking about, and another way of putting it is he's talking about the one among many, the friend among friend, the worker among workers. And just as I won't dwell on it, but I'll just share. I shared a little bit of my story recently, and part I didn't share is that when I went to Penn State, go Lions. Yeah, there we go. We got some Penn Staters here. I was a theater major, and I was for real. That's what my undergraduate degree is in, and nobody wanted to do scene work with me. Can you guess why? Because this is for real. I was an actor telling everybody else how they needed to act. And I was a terrible actor, by the way. I'm a much better actor now than I was then. And so when I first read this, my response was, how did they know? Because I lived that. But it's the actor who's trying to arrange everybody and basically saying to the director, why don't you go take a coffee break? I got this. And in all reality, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things I think we need to acknowledge, and I think that the book is getting at here, is that the way of life we are prescribing, the spiritual design for living, prepare yourself, because it's going to place us at odds or apart from the way the rest of the world tends to live. Right? He's saying most people live by self-propulsion. And today, I think that this is probably even more true than it was in 1939. We are a society rooted in, I'm just going to say, self-driven achievement and acquisition. That's what we value as a society. And what Bill is saying is that if we want to be sober, we need to as other people have said, we basically need to be in the world, but not of the world, if that makes sense. So moving onward, the rest, just FYI, the rest of this paragraph is warning. And I think it'll be pretty evident why that is. If only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. I want to back up for just a second to the thing. If only his arrangements would stay put. And what that means, think about it for a second. Okay, I'm the actor. Okay, Robbie, you go over here. Dave, you go over there. Okay, Linda, you're here. Brian, you're here. Okay, it's perfect. But then if only you would stay put. So I'm the actor. I'm not acknowledging the fact that you're actually human beings who might move or make choices or decisions of your own. In my mind, you're puppets. You're like little, like inanimate objects that I want to move around and I want to arrange in order to suit my vision. And he is saying, so what he is getting at is he is getting at the root of our self-centered delusion. So everything, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. And I can tell you, I know exactly what he's talking about. It's not like I am thinking, I'm in control, I'm a power grabber, I want to rule the world. Even though that's a little bit like what I thought like when I was drinking. No, I'm the guy who maybe am sober a while and I want to help other people get sober. And maybe they say they want to be sober, but they don't act like they want to be sober. And I start pushing and against them, and maybe I'm angry at them or frustrated at them. I mean, my intentions are virtuous, but I'm still taking this human being, this child of God, and framing this person like they are that stage prop. So I'm quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest, and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. And then we have a question. So that's orange. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. And I won't go into this, but I will say that sentence, he begins to think life doesn't treat him right. I think if you come into this program like I did for a long time, you can also substitute, take out the word life and put sobriety, meaning he begins to think sobriety doesn't treat him right. Like, I'm sober now. I'm not drinking. I'm doing all the virtuous things. Why aren't things going my way? See, it's easy to fall into this behavior, just as easy with a decades-long sobriety chip in your pocket as it is sitting on a bar stool. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes on the next occasion, this is all warning, by the way. We will come to more questions in a moment. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still the play does not suit him. Like I'm trying, okay. Clearly, I was not trying hard enough. Or maybe I was trying too hard. Maybe I need to step back and surrender. Then I'll get the outcome I envision. But what happens? Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. Like, here's at least how my script would usually run, and still does sometimes. My character defects are, they come out in reaction to my character defects are superficial, and they come out in reaction to your character defects that are baked in through and through you. Does that make sense? Like, I wouldn't be resentful right now if you weren't so stubborn, and if you weren't so constitutionally incapable of being honest with yourself. I wouldn't glance or I wouldn't brush against my character defects if you weren't soaking in yours in the first place. So, admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. Okay, and then the rest of this, it's great how he drives it home, because he just gives us a series of questions. So the rest of the paragraph is in orange. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only he manages well? That delusion, I believe, this is just my opinion, is the spiritual root of our disease. It is the spiritual root of our disease, which is only remedied by a thorough and complete adoption of the steps, primarily, and starting with step 1. And remember, and I again, on my time, I'm pretty much, I'm just, we're only getting about halfway through what I intended. So I really, again, I think I'm going to just end it with this paragraph, because I want to take a moment and just point out, this is one of the, this is the second time Bill uses the word delusion in our text, our primary text. And remember, and I've mentioned before, if you, because we often talk about denial, the denial of the disease. And interestingly, you will not find the word denial in the first 164 pages of this text. You will find delusion, though, several times. And the difference between denial and delusion is denial is rooted in self-will, being stubborn, being obstinate. It's rooted in obstinacy. Delusion is a psychiatric illness rooted in a spiritual malady. Like, you could sort of, like, if somebody, like, you say you want to shake somebody could shake you and maybe get you to get free of denial. But the thing about delusion, if you read the definition, the psychiatric definition of delusion, is that it is a harmful belief that grows stronger the more it is disproved. So the more you shake me, my only recourse is to double down on the belief. So the more I drank, the more I thought I needed alcohol. I got a DWI. I needed alcohol to relieve the stress of getting a DWI. So let's get through the end of this. Let's like you're the ones going slow. I'll get through this and then we'll open it up. Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? And while Bill doesn't mention a drink, this could apply to somebody drinking, or it could apply to the person in recovery who has not yet had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. It doesn't, I think Bill's point, and one of the reasons he doesn't mention alcohol, is exactly that. It doesn't matter. He's talking about the spiritual malady. And with that, it is, why don't we draw to a close there, because I think there's a lot to for us to chew on and discuss. And so what I'd like to do now, I'll bring the recording to a close, and I'd like to just open it up for your thoughts and impressions of the